I spent $10,000 on a family vacation to the Bahamas, dreaming of happy moments with my loved ones. But when I reached the airport with excitement in my heart, my son said, "I forgot to buy you a ticket. Just go home." It was as if the entire vacation, all the money, and every bit of love I'd given had been discarded like a piece of trash. 3 weeks later, when they came back, their faces turned pale, and I was no longer the broken man they had left behind. Before we continue, please subscribe to True Family Revenge Stories and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. The morning I was supposed to leave was a blur of excitement. For months, I had been planning a family trip to the Bahamas, spending $10,000 on flights, accommodations, activities, and everything we could need for a perfect vacation. This was going to be the trip where I could finally bond with my family, laugh with my grandchildren, and enjoy a break. My son, Michael, had been all in on the idea. He had been full of promises about how great it would be to have the whole family together again. But as I entered the bustling terminal of the airport, dragging my suitcase with a smile on my face, my phone rang. It was Michael. "Dad, can we talk?" he said, his voice sounding off. I paused, feeling an odd twinge of discomfort. "What's wrong, son?" "We're about to board. Let's talk after the flight." I need to tell you something important," he replied, his words hesitant. Something in his voice made my stomach churn. "I forgot to buy your ticket." For a moment, I thought I'd heard wrong. "What do you mean?" "Michael, we've been planning this for months." "What do you mean you forgot to buy my ticket?" "I didn't think it was necessary, Dad. You know, you didn't really need to come with us anyway. We're all set. Just head back home." The phone call ended abruptly, leaving me standing in the middle of the airport, my suitcase still clutched tightly in my hand. I couldn't breathe. What had just happened? I had worked hard to make this family trip happen, to bring us all together. And now this? I looked around the terminal, where families were hugging and laughing, boarding flights to their dream destinations. But my reality was something else entirely. Michael's words echoed in my mind as I made my way toward the airline counter, hoping this was all just a misunderstanding. The woman behind the counter smiled at me as I approached, her professional demeanor almost making me feel foolish for what I was about to ask. "Good morning, sir. How may I assist you today?" "Hi, I'm here to check in for my flight to the Bahamas. I'm with my family. The booking should be under Michael Turner," I said, my voice shaking slightly. Her fingers tapped quickly on the keyboard, and then she looked up, her smile faltering just a little. "I'm sorry, sir. It seems like there is no reservation for you under that name." No, that's impossible. Please double check. My family is already checked in." "I'm sorry, sir, I've double checked. Your son's name is on the reservation, but there's no ticket for you. The reservation only lists 3 people." I felt like I was in a nightmare. I started to turn around, searching for Michael, who had been standing behind me only a moment ago, but he was nowhere to be seen. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from Michael. "Sorry, Dad. We're all set. Just go home. We'll call you later from a hotel." My heart raced as I stood there, paralyzed, staring at the phone in my hand. The words on the screen were harsh, like a slap in the face. "Sorry, Dad. We're all set. Just go home. We'll call you later from a hotel." I didn't know what to feel. Disbelief, anger, confusion. Maybe all of them at once. I had been the one who planned everything for this family trip. I had spent my hard-earned money to make it special, to bring us all together for some joy-filled memories. And now, standing alone in the terminal, it felt like everything I had done for them had been forgotten, abandoned, as if I were just some old man who didn't matter anymore. I stood there for what felt like forever, the world bustling around me, people running toward their gates, families gathering, laughter and excitement in the air. But I couldn't hear any of it. All I could hear was the hum of the overhead lights and the pounding of my own heart. I turned back to the airline counter, determined to get some clarity. "Excuse me," I called out to the agent, my voice betraying the exhaustion in my chest. "Is there any chance you could help me book another flight today? To the Bahamas? I need to get on that plane." The agent glanced up from her screen, her smile polite but distant. "I'm sorry, sir, but all flights to the Bahamas today are fully booked. It's peak season, with everyone heading to the islands for the holidays. If you'd like, I can check for some standby options or look into flights for tomorrow. Tomorrow. The word felt like a knife in my side. Tomorrow. I didn't need tomorrow. I needed today. My family was already there. They were going to make memories without me. I could already picture them, enjoying the warm sun on their faces, swimming in the turquoise water, eating at fancy restaurants. And here I was, stranded in the airport, abandoned by the people I loved. I thanked the agent for her time, barely listening as she gave me information about future flights. I turned away, my feet heavy, my mind racing. What had I done to deserve this? I searched the terminal again, scanning the faces of the travelers. Some were relaxed, excited for their vacation. Others looked tired, ready to get away from the hustle of everyday life. But none of them had the same weight in their hearts that I did. None of them had been cast aside like I had. I had spent $10,000, and they had thrown me out without a second thought. I felt the tears start to build, threatening to spill over, but I forced them back. This wasn't about crying. This wasn't about being weak. No, this was about respect. This was about what my son had done to me. I stood still for a moment longer, my thoughts spinning in every direction. I could go back home, get on a plane by myself tomorrow, and spend the rest of the trip alone in a hotel room in the Bahamas. Or I could do something else, something that would show them, once and for all, that I wasn't some fool they could discard. I wasn't done yet. I left the terminal, my suitcase rolling behind me. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Michael. Dad, you really need to go home. We'll call you later. That was it. That was the last straw. This wasn't just about a forgotten ticket anymore. This was about respect. Michael didn't see me as a person anymore. To him, I was just a paycheck, a means to an end. I had been a cash machine for their vacations, their bills, their lives. But now, I had become an inconvenience. No, not anymore. I made my way to the airport's taxi line, my mind already working, formulating a plan. They had no idea what was about to happen. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. As I climbed into the back of the cab, I felt a shift within me. This wasn't about some petty family argument. This was bigger. This was about teaching them a lesson they wouldn't soon forget. The driver, an older man with graying hair, glanced at me in the rearview mirror as he started the car. Rough day, he asked with a sympathetic tone. You could say that, I muttered, staring out the window at the sprawling city of San Francisco. The busy streets, the bustling people, the energy that seemed to seep from the ground. It all seemed so distant now, so out of reach. Family stuff? He asked, his voice low but curious. Yeah, I replied with a sigh. Family stuff. The driver didn't press me further, but the silence in the cab felt like it wrapped around me. I was used to this kind of quiet. It was the kind of silence that gave you room to think, to reflect. But today, that silence was full of thoughts I didn't want to have. I thought about all the times I had been there for Michael. I thought about the times I'd given him money to pay off his mortgage, helped him pay for his wedding, and supported him when his wife, Fern, had surgery. I had given him everything, thinking that one day he would appreciate me. He would see what I had sacrificed for him, for the family. But now here I was, left behind, forgotten. The cab turned onto the highway, and I started to feel the weight of my decisions. But at the same time, there was a fire burning inside me. This was far from over. I pulled my phone out again, my fingers shaking as I dialed the number for my lawyer, Bruce Arland. He had been handling my estate planning for years, ever since Martha passed. He was the one who had helped me put everything together for my family. But I wasn't calling him today for anything related to estate planning. No, today I was calling for something different. Bruce answered on the second ring. Lee, what's going on? It's been a while since we've spoken. I need to meet with you as soon as possible, I said, my voice steady but resolute. We need to talk about Michael. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Is everything okay? No, Bruce. Everything is not okay, but I will make it right. I'll be in touch. Just set the meeting for tomorrow. I hung up, my heart racing. Tomorrow. That was all I needed. Just a little more time to get everything in place. I didn't know exactly how it would unfold, but I knew one thing. My son, Michael, was about to learn a lesson he would never forget. I felt the cool breeze from the Bay Area as the cab made its way across the bridge. I watched the water stretch out in front of me, my thoughts still churning. One thing was clear. I wasn't going to be left behind anymore. The morning arrived too soon. I hadn't slept much, my mind racing with plans, possibilities, and everything that had happened. I couldn't shake the memory of Simon's face, that fleeting moment of relief when he thought I was out of the picture. I knew I was done being their fool. By the time I arrived at Bruce's office, the sun was already climbing higher in the sky, casting a golden glow over the city skyline. I stepped into the sleek lobby of his building, the polished marble floors reflecting my every step. This wasn't just a meeting, it was the beginning of something bigger. The final step in regaining the respect I had lost. Bruce's assistant, Mrs. Chun, greeted me with a warm smile, but I could see the cautious look in her eyes. She knew something was coming, even if she didn't know the full story. I wasn't about to explain it all to her. This was for Bruce to understand. I walked into the office, where Bruce stood by the window, his back to me. He turned, his demeanor calm, controlled. "Lee," he said, shaking my hand firmly. "Good to see you. How's everything going?" I didn't return the pleasantries. "It's been a rough few days, Bruce, but I'm ready now. We need to take action." He motioned for me to sit, pulling out the documents we'd discussed last week. "I've reviewed everything you sent me. I think we're ready. You're sure about this?" "I'm sure," I said, sitting down across from him. I felt the weight of my decision in every word. I want to make sure Simon can never contest my will. He's shown me who he is, and now I'm going to show him who I am. Bruce nodded, his professional expression remaining neutral. "Let's go over the specifics. You want Simon excluded from the will entirely, correct? You've made that clear in your previous instructions." "Absolutely," I confirmed. "He doesn't deserve a penny. He's manipulated me for far too long. I worked for everything I have, and I will make sure it goes to those who truly deserve it. I want to leave everything to charity foundations that will use the money for good. I want my legacy to stand for something, Bruce, not be squandered by someone who thought he could just walk all over me." "Understood," Bruce said as he started typing on his computer. "We'll draft the will accordingly. But, Lee, I need to make something clear. Once you make these changes, Simon won't be able to contest them easily. The provisions we're putting in place are solid, but there could be a challenge. It's inevitable with the amount of money involved." "I'm ready for it," I said firmly. "I don't care if it's contested. Let them try. I'm doing what's right, and if Simon wants to fight it, let him waste his time and money. But I will not stand by and let him walk away with what's mine, not after everything he's done." Bruce looked at me, his eyes sharp with understanding. He knew the situation was personal, but I could see a flicker of respect for the resolve in my voice. "All right, Lee, let's get to work. We'll make sure everything is in place, with no loopholes for Simon to exploit." The next few days passed in a blur. Bruce's office worked quickly as promised, and within 72 hours, I had a new will in my hands. I knew that once this document was signed, my life would change forever, and I would never have to deal with Simon's manipulation again. But I wasn't just preparing for the legalities. I was preparing for Simon's reaction. I knew he wouldn't take this lying down. The man had a way of twisting situations to his advantage, and this time I was going to make sure he couldn't manipulate his way out of it. That evening, I sat in my favorite chair by the window, sipping on a glass of scotch, and replayed the past few months in my mind. The Hawaiian vacation, the betrayal, the lies, the exclusion, all the things I had done for them, for my family, and how they had turned on me like I was nothing more than an afterthought. I had tried to convince myself that they would come around, that they would realize their mistake and apologize. But now I knew better. They were never going to change. They had shown me who they really were, and there was no going back. I picked up my phone and sent a text to Bruce. "We're ready to move forward. Let's schedule the signing. The reply came swiftly. I've got everything set up. Tomorrow at 11 a.m. at my office. Be there. The next day, I dressed in my best suit, professional, calm, and ready to take the next step. It wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. I was finally going to make sure Simon learned that actions had consequences. He wasn't going to manipulate me anymore. He was going to face the consequences of his greed. I arrived at Bruce's office at precisely 10:50 a.m. The elevator ride up felt like an eternity, but I knew I couldn't back out now. This was it, the moment of truth. When I entered the conference room, Bruce and his team were already there, waiting for me. Everything was arranged, the documents, the notary, and the witnesses. Bruce greeted me with a firm handshake and guided me to the seat at the table. Lee, you're sure about this? I nodded, taking my seat. More than ever. Bruce handed me the documents, and I began reviewing them carefully. I wanted to make sure everything was perfect. Each page was a reminder of the journey I had taken to get to this moment. It wasn't just about securing my financial legacy. It was about making sure I was no longer treated like a fool. As I signed the documents, I could feel a weight lifting off my shoulders. This wasn't just about protecting my wealth. It was about reclaiming my dignity. I wasn't the helpless old man they thought I was. I was a man who had spent his life building something important, something that meant something. Bruce finished the last line of paperwork and handed me a final copy. Congratulations, Lee. This is officially done. Simon will never be able to contest your will. And with everything we've set up, you'll have the protection you need. I sat back in my chair, letting the finality of the moment sink in. It was over, but I knew that Simon would find out soon enough, and when he did, he would regret everything. I left the office that day feeling lighter, like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. But I knew the storm was coming. Simon and Fern would be back soon, and they would be expecting answers. But this time, they weren't going to like the answers I had for them. I drove home, the familiar sights of the Bay Area blurring past. As I approached my house, I couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. This was my home. This was where I belonged. And no one, not even Simon, could take that away from me. Tomorrow, the world would shift again, and I would be ready. The days that followed were a strange mix of calm and anticipation. I had made my decision. I had taken the necessary steps to protect myself, my legacy, and my dignity. But there was still that gnawing feeling. What would Simon say when he found out? What would Fern say when the truth came crashing down on them? 2 weeks have passed since the signing. I went through my daily routines, morning walks around the neighborhood, spending quiet evenings in my favorite chair, reading or watching television. It was the calm before the storm, and I tried to savor every moment of peace. My lawyer, Bruce, had assured me that Simon would soon realize his fate, but I had no idea what form that realization would take. And then, one afternoon, I got the call. I was sitting at my kitchen table, enjoying a quiet lunch, when my phone buzzed. It was an unfamiliar number, but the area code was local, so I picked it up. Lee Willis. Yes, this is he. Mr. Willis, this is Detective John Harris with the Oakland Police Department. We need you to come down to the station for a meeting regarding your son, Simon Willis. It's urgent. The words hit me like a bolt of lightning. I had expected confrontation, but this was something different. What happened? I asked, my voice steady despite the shock that was beginning to creep into my chest. Your son, Simon Willis, has filed a report accusing you of elder abuse and financial coercion. He's claiming you manipulated him into transferring funds to you for the Hawaiian vacation, and he's demanding legal action be taken. I felt the blood drain from my face. It was like a bad dream, but it was real. Simon, the son I had raised, the one I had trusted, was now turning the tables. This was his retaliation. He didn't care about the truth. He cared about the money he thought he deserved. I'll be there in an hour, I said, hanging up without another word. I sat there for a moment, processing what had just happened. Simon had gone too far. He wasn't just trying to steal my money. He was trying to destroy me, to paint me as the villain when in reality, He was the one who had betrayed me. I grabbed my jacket and keys, my movements mechanical. The decision I had made was now in full motion. Simon had shown me his true colors, and now I would show him mine. Arriving at the Oakland Police Department felt surreal. As I walked through the doors, I was greeted by Detective Harris, who led me to a small conference room. The walls were sterile, and the fluorescent lights overhead buzzed faintly, adding to the oppressive feeling in the air. The table in front of me was empty except for a notepad and a pen, but I knew exactly what this meeting was about. Simon had already been brought in, and I could hear his voice muffled through the closed door. He was shouting, demanding that the police take action against me. His voice carried a mix of anger and desperation, like a child who had been caught in a lie but refused to admit it. Detective Harris motioned for me to sit. "Mr. Willis," he began, his tone neutral, "we've been listening to your son's statement. He's claiming you manipulated him into transferring funds for the vacation, and he's accusing you of threatening him if he didn't comply." I blinked in disbelief. "Is that what he's telling you?" I asked, keeping my voice steady, despite the anger rising inside me. "Yes," Harris replied. "He's also making claims about emotional and financial manipulation over the years." I leaned forward, my fists clenched. "Detective, I'm not the one who manipulated anyone. I gave my son $10,000 for a family vacation. I wanted to create memories with my family, but instead of being grateful, he used my generosity as a weapon. He planned to exclude me from the vacation the entire time. He never intended for me to be included, and now he's trying to turn the tables on me, claiming I'm the one at fault." Detective Harris raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical, but trying to remain impartial. "And what about the will? Did you disinherit him?" "Yes," I said, my voice unwavering. "I did, but that was my decision. After everything that happened, after he deliberately left me behind and manipulated me for money, I decided to protect myself. I didn't want to leave everything I've worked for to someone who doesn't value me or my contributions to this family. It's not about revenge. It's about justice." Harris paused, his eyes studying me carefully. "So you're saying Simon is lying? That he didn't help plan the vacation?" "I'm saying that Simon is trying to manipulate the situation," I replied, my voice growing firmer. "He doesn't care about me. He never did. He only cares about what he can get. And now he's using the police to try to force me into giving him what he feels he's entitled to." The detective nodded slowly, as if considering my words. "I'll need to speak with Simon again. Stay here, please." I sat in the small room, my thoughts swirling. This was it. Simon had crossed the line, and now it was time for him to face the consequences of his actions. I had protected myself legally, and Bruce had made sure I had all the documentation I needed. But nothing could prepare me for how far Simon was willing to go to get what he wanted. A few minutes later, Detective Harris returned, his expression somber. "Mr. Willis, we've spoken to Simon. We've reviewed the evidence, and we've concluded Simon's claims do not hold up. The accusations of elder abuse and financial coercion are baseless. We have no grounds to pursue legal action against you. However, he is upset that you've excluded him from the will, and we're advising him to reconsider his approach." I let out a breath I didn't realize I had been holding. "Thank you," I said simply. "But it's not just about the money. It's about the principle. Simon crossed a line, and I won't let him walk all over me anymore." Detective Harris nodded, his demeanor changing slightly. "I understand. You've made your position clear. We won't pursue this any further. You're free to go." As I left the police department, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. Simon had tried to destroy me, to turn everything I had worked for into a weapon against me. But he had failed. The truth had come out. Justice had been served. I walked out into the bright sunlight, feeling lighter than I had in days. Simon may have thought he could manipulate me, but he had underestimated my strength and my resolve. If you've ever faced a similar situation, where betrayal turned family into strangers, I want you to know that you are not alone. Sometimes, the hardest thing to do is stand up for yourself, but it is also the most important thing. Thank you for following this journey with me. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to True Family Revenge Stories. And leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your feedback.
A sharp intake of breath escaped from Daniel. His composure, so carefully maintained, finally crumbled. Emily's face paled, her eyes widening as the reality of their actions settled in. The courtroom was silent except for the echo of the foreperson's voice. Judge Green nodded solemnly. This court sentences Daniel Porter and Emily Klein each to 15 years in state prison, with the possibility of parole after 10 years. Your actions have consequences, and justice has been served. As the defendants were led away in handcuffs, I felt a wave of relief wash over me, tempered by a deep, unshakable sadness. The son I had raised, the boy I had nurtured and taught, had become a stranger in his own skin. The betrayal ran deep, but the law had intervened, restoring some semblance of balance to the chaos. Olivia and I walked out of the courthouse together, the April sun warm against our faces. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of peace, a quiet confidence that the right outcome had been reached. We had faced the darkest shadow of betrayal and emerged with justice on our side. As we stepped into the street, Olivia turned to me. "Dad, what happens now?" I squeezed her hand, feeling the weight of relief, responsibility, and hope. "Now, sweetheart, we live. We honor our values, the integrity your mother believed in. We protect what's rightfully ours. And we move forward, together." The courthouse behind us, the heavy burden of fear and betrayal lifted. I knew that while Daniel had gambled everything on one poisonous dinner, we had won far more than the inheritance at stake. We had reclaimed our lives, our trust, and our family's honor. Marcus caught up to us, a faint smile breaking his usual stoic demeanor. "It's done. You did well, all of you. The evidence was overwhelming, and the law prevailed." I nodded, grateful not only for his guidance, but for the clarity he had brought to an impossible situation. Daniel's life had been altered forever, the consequences of his greed and malice inescapable. Emily's future, too, was bound by the choices she had made. And Olivia would inherit not just wealth, but the knowledge that integrity, honesty, and loyalty always triumph over deceit. Walking back to the car, I reflected on the lessons embedded in this ordeal. Life is unpredictable, and the people we trust can sometimes betray us in unimaginable ways. But with careful preparation, clear thinking, and unwavering commitment to what is right, even the darkest betrayals can be confronted and overcome. The sun was setting over Seattle, casting a golden glow on the water and the skyline. It was a reminder that even after the storm, there is light. Even after betrayal, there is hope. And even after losing everything you thought was secure, it is possible to rebuild, to protect those who matter most, and to ensure that justice is served. The days following the trial were quiet, almost unnervingly so. The tension that had gripped our home for weeks seemed to dissipate, leaving an echoing silence in its wake. Olivia and I spent time in the living room of our Seattle home, the late afternoon sun spilling through the wide bay windows, casting long golden shadows across the hardwood floor. It was a peaceful scene, but beneath that tranquility lay a lingering vigilance, a reminder that trust, once shattered, is never easily rebuilt. I found myself thinking constantly about Daniel and Emily, their faces marked with shock, fear, and the dawning realization of the consequences they had wrought upon themselves. 15 years, or possibly more if parole was denied, stretched ahead of them like a horizon they could no longer reach. They had gambled on greed and deception, but the law and careful preparation had intervened, preventing the unthinkable. Olivia sat beside me on the couch, her fingers tracing patterns on the upholstery as she asked the question I knew would come eventually. "Dad, are you going to change your will again?" I exhaled slowly. The legal documents had been painstakingly updated in the weeks before the trial, ensuring that Daniel would be completely excluded from any inheritance, and that everything would pass directly to Olivia. The notary had signed, sealed, and finalized the revisions. Marcus had meticulously overseen the process. Yet, the thought of the betrayal still made the process feel intensely personal. "Yes, sweetheart," I said quietly. "Everything is set now. You are the sole heir. Everything I've worked for, everything your mother and I built, will be yours. I want to make sure that nothing, absolutely nothing, can take that away from you." She leaned into me, and I could see the mix of grief and relief in her eyes. Losing trust in a parent is a wound unlike any other, It cuts deep, reshapes the perception of safety, and yet, in the end, it can reveal the resilience and strength of those who remain loyal. Olivia had been by my side through the legal battles, the police interviews, and the endless consultations with Marcus, proving herself worthy of both the responsibility and the inheritance she now held. Our conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Marcus stepped in, holding a thick manila envelope. "I thought you might want to review a few final documents," he said, setting it on the coffee table. "These cover the trust for Olivia and the remaining assets. Everything is in order." I opened the envelope carefully, flipping through the pages. Trust funds, property titles, bank accounts, and investments. Everything meticulously cataloged, legally airtight, and protected from potential future threats. Marcus watched quietly, allowing me the space to absorb the enormity of what had been achieved. "You've done more than I could have asked for," I said, gratitude thick in my voice. "Not just for the legal work, but for protecting my family."